Welcome back to the Pitch to Purchase podcast. I am your host, Lisa Raebel, and I'm so happy that you're here today. Not only because we're talking about some great stuff and I have an amazing guest on today, but because it doesn't matter what your role is in an organization, this information applies to you. I guarantee it. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to continue the conversation of the client experience and the 5 opportunities you have to increase revenue without actually any more spend on your budget. Now, in the last episode, we talked about 2.5 of the 5 topics. We talked about the attract, which is your marketing. Are you doing that right? Are you talking to the right people? What does that really mean? And we talked about the fact that 50 to 90% of the decision-making process of your new customers is already made before you have that first contact, which brings to the opportunity too of that first communication. A lot of people don't intentionally figure out what that looks like. We just kind of wing it when we pick up the phone or respond to an email. We need to stop doing that. And we started to touch on the sales process. Once you get that first opportunity, that first phone call to connect with somebody, what's the next natural step? What are your calls to action for them to do that? And is that process intentional? So today we're going to wrap up on the sales process. We're going to talk about onboarding a client, and then we're also going to talk about what happens when the client engagement ends. All of those are revenue opportunities for you to grow your business. So if you're liking this topic so far, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'd love to be able to let you know the next time another opportunity comes up for the Pitch to Purchase podcast. Okay, let's get into it. Because I want to get to the interview that I recorded earlier today with Erin Marcus, who is a growth strategist and freaking hysterical, by the way. We laugh a lot, we talk a lot, and she gives some amazing advice. Not only is she somebody that I just love having in my inner circle, she's also my business coach. Because she's the person who calls me on the carpet when I need to be called out on and kick my ass. But she's also positive and encouraging. And she's so intelligent. I just love having conversations with her. And it's all just practical stuff. This is not rocket science stuff. This is stuff anybody can implement into their business. All right, we'll get to that in a minute though. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the sales process. Your marketing worked. Somebody called you. You did a great discovery call, that first conversation, and now you're on to the sales process. We think that sales process is about just closing the business. It's not. It's about creating a mutually beneficial contract between you and the customer. You don't win too much. They don't win too much. It's a mutually beneficial agreement. That's where the most profit is. Because what's going to happen is if they find that they're getting great value for what they got, they're going to recommend you to other people, which is the continuation part of this conversation. So I'm jumping ahead. So let me back up just a little bit. So what happens when somebody goes, I'm interested to, I'm ready? There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in between. In that sales process, you've got initial conversations, discovery calls, you've got follow-up calls, you've got tweaking of the proposal, you've got agreed upon pricing, you've got contracts. And with that process, are you making it easy for the customer to say yes? Or is it just a whole bunch of paperwork that just fill this out and we'll figure it out? Because that bleeds into the onboarding part of the revenue opportunities. And in the first part of this episode, in the episode that launched a couple of weeks ago, it's really about listening over telling. It really is. It's that you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them proportionately. Because what's happening is that, and this is so awesome, what's happening is that when a customer talks more and you ask more clarifying questions, they actually give you triggers and more problems to solve than you originally thought, which means you can add services and products to your proposal. I mean, you didn't have to spend any more money except for a little bit more time listening and figuring it out to increase the value of that proposal, which increases the revenue and the profitability of that client. So in the sales process, it's not just about making sure that it gets closed. It's making sure that you are providing all of the necessary information. And in the last episode, I also talked about on your proposal, even though you're not selling certain products or services, list them in the back of the proposal so they know you do more than what they're buying. Because sometimes they'll see it and go, oh, I didn't know you did that, because it never came up in the conversation. And you can sell, again, more products and services than you intended on, increasing the profitability and increasing your revenue. So when it comes to the sales process, to wrap that up, it's not about closing the deal. It's about opening the relationship. So congratulations, you have a new client. Your marketing worked. That first initial phone call, you built trust. Your sales process, you created a value add to their business, solving their problems. And now you need to onboard them as a client. Again, this is a missed opportunity for a lot of companies because they think once the contract is signed, then they just start the project. Well, there's a whole block of time and opportunity in there to, again, increase revenue. Now, the best clients are the ones who know exactly what's going to happen next. The best projects happen when the customer is so confident that you know what you're talking about and they know exactly what they're going to get, that there's revenue there as well. Because what's happening here is that a lot of organizations that I've worked with, they go, oh, this is great. I should probably bring in this department. And they can add on there. Now, this isn't about scope creep. This is not about adding more work to you. This is about adding more people into the project or into the process than you originally counted on. Which then, if it begins to be scope creep, which is you're doing more work than the contract, you can stop immediately and go, hey, let's renegotiate what that looks like because I'm adding more work to my business. And that happens before the project begins in the onboarding process. Yes, the contract is always signed, but that doesn't mean you can't make an addendum or an adjustment to that signed contract. And in that onboarding process, when you're telling them exactly what to expect, when to expect it, how to expect it, they know you're going to kick some ass and get this done really, really well, and the product is going to solve their problems. In that opportunity, you can talk about other clients that you've worked with. Because what you're doing there, a little bit of psychology is in this process that I'm thinking about, is that you're telling stories of how you've helped other clients do this, and they're starting to think, oh, I know somebody who might need that too. And without even asking for a referral, you could possibly get a referral. But okay, I can't emphasize this enough. It has to be authentic. Tell a story because it fits into the conversation. Don't tell a story because it sounds like you're trying to sell something else. Please, I beg you, don't do that. You've already got them as a customer. So stop selling and start informing. Okay, so your marketing worked, you attracted them, you had a great initial conversation, your sales process went really well, you've onboarded them, congratulations, I know exactly what to expect out of you and when to expect it and how the whole process works. Now comes delivery. I'm not touching delivery. That's not my expertise. I'm assuming that all of you have your delivery part solid and you don't need any help with that. What I want to go to next is the continuation aspect. Let's say it's getting near the end of a project or near the end of the term that the product is being used, whatever the onboarding, whatever the case might be. Now, Erin talks about this in her section too, so I'm not going to go super deep on this, but the time to ask for a testimonial or a referral is not after the project is done because they've kind of already moved on. It's just before you end that. And the opportunity there to increase your revenue is either talk about ongoing services that you have. Like I have a customer who designs and builds and installs this huge system, but then there's more money to be made because there's also maintenance on that system. So what is it that's the maintenance on that system? For me, it's quarterly follow-ups. Every quarter, clients buy in, they sign a year contract, and they get 5 hours of my time a quarter. Now, that could be for like quick calls. It could be like for sessions. That could be like a 2-hour strategy session to see how everything's going. But there's that maintenance aspect. You've invested in your marketing and your growth revenue. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's maintained. It also serves as an accountability aspect for them too. Did they actually do the things that they said that they were going to do? So what is it in your business that you could have as almost like a maintenance aspect and do continuation business? Again, increasing your revenue long term because you figured out how to do continuation business with them. And even if it's a project that it has a stark deadline, there's no maintenance or anything with it, The revenue opportunity is before that's done, before you're done working with that customer, is to ask for those testimonials and those referrals. Now, Erin does a great job in talking about how to ask for those referrals, so we're not going to go into that either. And one of the things that I really want to make sure that I don't miss through all of this is the fact that every role touches revenue. If you've heard any of my previous episodes, you're going to understand that this is the hill that I will die on. Because throughout this whole customer experience that we've been talking about, marketing is responsible for attracting the client, so they touch revenue. Your receptionist or your intake or your call center or whoever it is that's taking that first phone call from customers, they're responsible for touching revenue. And then when it gets handed off to whatever sales process you have, that handoff from the intake to the sales process, they're responsible for revenue. And once sales gets done and then you're onboarding with, maybe you have a team that actually does the actual project, you have account reps or whatever the case might be, they're responsible for touching revenue. And then throughout the whole process of the delivery, if you have specialists or manufacturing or product delivery, shipping, I don't care what the department is, they're responsible for revenue. And at the end, in wrapping up that conversation, it goes back to sales or the account rep, or maybe even customer service. They are responsible for revenue. There's not one person in your organization that is not responsible at some point of the customer experience on touching revenue. I will argue that to the day I die. So here's what I want you to do. First of all, take a deep breath, because we still have Erin's interview coming up, which is really fun and really she's got so much amazing, great points. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about, how am I attracting the right customers? Not just leads, the right customers. Am I intentionally having that first interaction with the customer? Or is my team? What are they saying? Are they saying the same thing as marketing said? And that handoff to sales, is that transition smooth? And from sales to onboarding, from onboarding to delivery, and then at the end of the project or the end of the timeline that you're working with that customer, is that smooth too? And is there business we can do afterwards? I know it's a lot. I do. But do you also realize by improving even just one of those sections, you can increase revenue without spending another dime on an application or marketing or technology? All you need to do is fix that client experience. That's it. If you don't know how to do that, well, my contact information is in the links below. Okay, enough with me and the 5 steps, because I really want to get to this interview with Erin Marcus. I mean, she's brilliant. Right now, she's working for not-for-profit, but her experience in corporate and being an entrepreneur and being a solopreneur really helps you understand not how to just sell to the small businesses, but how the big corporations think as well. And I hate to tell you this, it's the same. No matter if you're selling to huge companies or you're selling to smaller organizations, the thought process is the same in the sales process. So, without further ado, Erin Marcus. Enjoy. We come to my favorite part of the podcast, which is I get to introduce some amazing and wonderful people. And this is a woman that I've known for years now. And I swear to God, we have the most professionally unprofessional conversations of all. We laugh a lot. We talk a lot, but we promise to keep it down to 15 minutes at the most, as we talk about the sales process when it comes to your revenue opportunities. So, Erin Marcus is not only somebody that I've known for a long time and a friend of mine, but she's also my own personal business coach, because she's the one who talks me off the ledge and kicks me in the ass whenever I need it. So, Erin, thanks.
Need both.
Thanks for being on the podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and why I asked you on the podcast?
Sure, awesome. So thank you so much for inviting me. Any opportunity to do something with you is always a fantastic opportunity. So I'm excited. I have a really wide range of experience, mostly because I don't have an attention span. So I've done the big fancy corporate thing. I did the C-suite $1 million deals, on that level of sales, if you would. I have an MBA in marketing that nice fancy corporate company paid for. And then I've also done the entrepreneurship, the solopreneurship, big and small, right? I've done that on my own. I've done that with a team. I think I had like 7 people at one time. And then I also now have my main client, my main thing that I focus on is development and marketing for a vastly quickly growing nonprofit. So in terms of sales and for your audience, I've kind of run the gambit of small sales, emotional sales, corporate sales, nonprofit mission driven sales. You name it, we've sold it.
Yeah, which is great because what happens is most of the people who become entrepreneurs forget that they have to become salespeople. And all of
Yes.
a sudden they're like, wait, what? And
Right.
so, yeah. And so what I love talking about is that in one of the talks that I do, it's nobody can talk about your business with as much joy and passion as you do. So it's okay to be a salesperson and the owner of your business because that's the role that you took on when you decided to become an entrepreneur in the first place.
Well, and truthfully, I would, help you expand that a step further. And why is there a negative attachment to helping people solve problems? Right. Most people, when they hear, ooh, I have to do sales, if they don't like sales, it's because they're associating the concept of a salesperson with a negative experience. But the truth of the matter is, every problem I've ever solved with a product or service was sold to me. So why
Right.
is that a bad thing?
Well, and if we stop calling it sales and start calling it problem solving, I think that takes that negative connotation out of it. And I've said that probably a million times. I mean, the rebel mindset that I've said, I don't know, 100 times is that marketing is simply storytelling and selling is simply telling that story to other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you
So,
do your marketing well, your sales conversation, and this is my favorite approach, if you do your marketing well, your conversation is a confirmation conversation, not
yep.
a consideration conversation. So you're not convincing anyone of anything. You're just confirming that everything they've learned about you through your marketing process is true.
Yes. And I talked about that in the last episode of the podcast where it said that your marketing and your first conversation need to align perfectly as well as the beginning of the sales conversation. Because if marketing says one thing and sales says another, you've
You're
completely broke the trust of that prospect.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with your experience in selling corporate, what what is it that either you found was an interesting in the process of selling to corporate from maybe from small businesses, and what was similar?
So I think the thing that people forget is that companies are run by people, right? Businesses are run by people. So you can't take the person and how you connect to a human out of the process. My approach is that you have to add something to the process with large companies that's not always as prevalent in when you have a single decision maker. I like to add, like, my approach has always been, I call it like heart, head, heart. Staging the problem is an emotional attachment, right? There's a problem that exists. The solution needs to be logical. And then the call to action is emotional again. And I'll give you my example because it's such a blunt example. And it was back in my corporate days. I was part of a team. We were renegotiating. We were in the insurance world, and we were renegotiating our commission structure with one of the largest insurance companies in the country. And we were working with them on trying to figure out, we needed it to just change the way we were getting paid. It wasn't even necessarily more money. It was just laid out differently. The
Okay.
details of that, we could talk for like 4 hours on the complexity of why do they even do that. But we were getting nowhere. We were getting absolutely nowhere with the approach. We had been sitting at the table with our team, their team, all morning, and we've been getting nowhere. And we happened to be at a large convention when we had this meeting. We just, took ourselves aside to a meeting room. So we break for lunch, and at the lunch buffet, I find myself in line behind the president of this insurance company. And I knew him, he knew me, but here's the other thing. Truthfully, I was maybe 35 years old at the time. I'm 5 feet tall. I'm female in financial services, right? Everyone else at the table was what I used, a large white male and
Hmm.
at least 10 years older than me. But because it was me, so now I didn't have to be all formal because he wasn't seeing me as a threat or a negotiator. I was just part of the team, the token part of the team, if you would.
Been
I
there.
Right, been there.
Yeah.
I literally said to him as we were in line, like, what is it gonna take to solve this problem? And he looked down at me because this guy was like 6'4", and he looked at me like a foot and a half. He looked at me and he said, I can't take these numbers to my boss. That's an emotional problem.
Mm,
Here is an individual who was president of a line of insurance by what you all know the company, like of one of the largest companies in the country. And his problem was he couldn't look bad to his boss.
yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
emotional problem.
Absolutely.
And so I said to him, okay, what would work? From your, like, just be honest with me. What would work? He goes, well, I can't do more than XYZ. And I thought about it for a second because I was the one who's actually managing all these numbers. I just wasn't the owner of the company. Um, I said, I could totally make that work. I can absolutely work with that. And he's like, well, then let's do that. And then after lunch, we went back to the table. Right. So this was a situation where I had to remove the friction from the sales conversation.
Yes.
And I did it by being authentic, taking a different approach, asking a question instead of stating my side. I was no longer pushing, right? I removed the friction. I was no longer pushing. Some of that just worked on my behalf because who I was in the scenario. And I had to think about, okay, he has an emotional problem. He's a human.
Yeah.
I hadn't met his wife. Like, he's a human. He has an emotional problem. And then we came up with a logical solution. So when you're selling in with large number, the same holds true, by the way, in the nonprofit that I'm working with now. We approach $1 million family foundations slightly differently than the $50 a month donor.
Right.
Right. The $50 a
Of
month
course.
donor has an emotional attachment. Well,
Yeah.
so does the $1 million foundation, but they want more logic and proof that we know what they're doing. So to go back to your question, the biggest difference is there are some people in a small business situation who want the logic and proof, and some people who make all their decisions based only on their emotions. And when you're at the larger numbers, you absolutely need both. You absolutely need both.
Yes. And behind that, the reason his obstacle of like not agreeing with you was fear. He
Was
had a
fear.
fear of letting somebody else down. I
Right.
mean, there are 7 baseline fears. And if you've heard it once, you've heard me 1,000 times. I actually have it in the book. I'm going to look at all 7 of them because it's probably going to relate to one of the things that you were just talking about. So, not according to me, but according to Psychology Today, the 7 baseline fears are fear of failure, fear of change, risk taking, uncertainty, not being good enough, letting others down, and success. So he had a baseline fear of letting his boss
Letting his
down
boss down, a
that was
failure.
based on the emotional, because the fear is an emotion, right? So
Right.
if you understand why somebody has an objection and what the fear is behind it, you can mitigate that fear and that sale goes to that heart part of closing that sale.
Exactly.
Oh, I love
What
that.
I've noticed in a smaller sales situation or an individual sales situation, you can just through conversation often get enough into the logic to move through the process. The
Yeah.
larger the numbers, the more logic you need, right? Because every sales decision is an emotional decision backed up by logic.
Yes.
So
100%.
right. Every single one. I always say when I bought my Mini Cooper, where was I going to go with a turbo engine in the city of Chicago? Like, really? But I told Had to have it. But I told myself I got a great deal. It got good gas mileage and I could park it anywhere, right? Like, it's just how that
Yes.
works. And also the removing the friction. I think that's something that people who are uncomfortable with sales in particular, one of the things that they're uncomfortable with is this idea that we are pushing against each other, and their fear of conflict is getting in their way of having a sales conversation. But a good sales conversation doesn't have any conflict. There's
Well,
no
and a good sales conversation has mutually beneficial. The
exactly.
salesperson doesn't win, the client doesn't win over the salesperson. It's a mutually
Right.
beneficial conversation. If you
Right.
both just act like adults and remember that you are both human, there's a whole movement in marketing that they talk about, which is B2H, which is business to human
Absolutely.
conversation. And I cannot preach that. I cannot scream that from the highest mountaintop
Well, you and
enough
I
that
were
you're still talking and
you're
selling
still
to a human
correcting
person.
humans. And that's where the authenticity piece comes in. I always laugh because, I've worked for myself since 2012. And even before that, I was kind of the black sheep in corporate who was allowed to run around like a lunatic doing whatever I want because the results were there. And when the results are
Yes.
there, you're given a wide,
Yeah.
wide breath
A wide berth. Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
being allowed to do whatever you want. But the authenticity, when you lose authenticity, you lose that human connection and you lose your sales.
Which is
You
why I
lose
think I did really well in corporate under the manager who let me be myself and sell the way I wanted to sell versus the way I was told to sell. And the
That's what
manager who came
oh,
in and said, "But this is the way we do it here." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's
that's
completely against actually one of my values, which was get the best you can possibly get and screw the client." It's literally the sales manager's attitude.
right.
And I'm just like, okay, that goes against a core value of mine, which is probably why I went from like 220% of my, sales to like, barely making 97% of my quota because it just felt ick.
It wasn't authentic,
No.
and I've never been a very formal person. I listen, to my boyfriend on his corporate business calls, and I don't even understand half the phrases that he's using because we've been together 12 years and I've never heard him use those phrases with me. So it's like, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
so inauthentic. Now, I'm not saying I should be swearing and being inappropriate, but I don't know. I'm not a formal person. So if I suddenly become a formal person, you lose that authenticity. And I think that's another difference. Like, people think you're supposed to be, or I would always say they would put their marketing hat on. They would put their corporate hat on. They would put their sales hat on. And then they'd become a version of the thing they think they're supposed to be that they might not even agree with. It doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work.
And when you're in that sales process, you have to wear both the client hat and the business owner hat. You have to think like a business owner so you get the right amount of whatever it is that you're looking for, but you have to put the client hat on and find out like what is it that why are they
Well, I
buying?
would
And that goes
invite,
back to the podcast that talks about the ideal customer profile. It's not about the demographics, it's about the why they buy and
right.
understanding the psychographics, the why they buy. That's the most important piece of it.
And all that should be done before you ever have a sales conversation.
All of that should be done before you even start marketing. And
So true.
but that's, but
Right.
yeah,
That's, I think, right. But that's where people get themselves in
yeah,
trouble. I always say
yeah.
they don't do the work before they go to work. They just
Ah,
dive in because nobody goes in a business. The small business is open because you love the thing the business does, not because you necessarily love being a business owner. I was lucky to come up through business. I learned business before I decided what I wanted to do for myself.
yes. I did the same thing working for corporate and all those companies, both as sales and as, sales leader and as a marketing leader. So I see both sides of that coin. So
Right.
that's the benefit that we have. But if we're talking to an audience that is just, they've been an entrepreneur, they got into it. And one of the things that I hear a lot with my customers is why is my prospect ghosting me? Like, why have I not heard back from them? So, do you want to talk about a situation or maybe give some advice as to like when you feel like you're being ghosted, what that actually means?
It's a polite no. It's a, it's a polite no. They're not
Yeah.
ghosting you. They're answering you. You just don't want to admit it. You didn't do enough to show the value, right? It's a value, right? It's a polite no. That one of the best pieces of advice I got was from a guy in financial services. He was Northwestern Mutual agent. And I worked with him a lot over 2 decades. He said, the worst thing somebody could tell me is maybe, because it
Mm.
means I didn't do my job. It's either a yes or it's a no. So many people are scared of receiving a no or saying no that they just ghost, right? If someone's ghosting you, that's just avoiding telling you no.
Yeah, and I like to take those ghosting clients and I like to close the loop myself, whether they return the thing or not. So I had a client that I thought I was killing the sales conversation when obviously I did something wrong. We all do something wrong. No matter how much sales experience, you either talk too much or you get too full of yourself or whatever the case is, whatever
It's
you,
you.
whenever you lost that. But what I like to do is I like to close the loop and I just say, I haven't heard from you. I think we would be great working together. So whenever you're ready to continue the conversation, I'll be here. And I don't ever say like, why did I don't ever just talk about how they ghosted me. I just say, listen, I haven't heard from you. So whenever you're ready, I'll be here. And whether they call back or not, some have called back. I actually got a call, I want to say this was like 3 months ago from somebody I haven't talked to in like 3 years. I
Mhm.
literally had to look them up. Like, I don't even know who this person is. And they're like, "What you said to me really stuck with me, and I'm ready now." And I'm like, "Great." I mean, I haven't talked to you in 3
That's
years.
why you
Yeah,
don't chase. So this is the way I always taught it. What happens when you chase people? They run away.
yeah.
So
Oh,
stop
I love
chasing.
that. Stop chasing. Yeah,
It's energy. It's purely energetic. If someone is ghosting you, it's a polite no that they're not brave enough to say to your face. So give them the space that they're requiring. Don't chase them.
but have you ever found a company that's ghosted you and you look back and you go, "Oh, yeah, I'm
Well,
glad that they weren't a
oh
client."
God. Well, so just to close the loop on what you said, I follow up sometimes even more softly than what you do. I will 6 months later say, hey, just checking in to see how you're doing. I'll be specific if they have told me what their problem was that we were trying to solve. How is this going? Real soft, like so they don't feel it's a sales, it's just a reconnection. I don't even try to get somebody who ghosted me to a yes or no, period.
Yeah,
I just let them stay neutral and check in on them, maybe every 6 months, a couple of times. And then if they still don't, I'll stop. Um, I'll offer more free advice. There's so many clients, the only thing better than getting a client you love is either firing or not getting a client you realize was a bad client, a bad fit,
oh,
right?
yeah, the one that I was
So,
talking about, I found out something that happened within the corporation, like, there's this mass exodus, and I'm like, "Oh, glad
oh,
they're not my client." You know what I mean? It's just I found out later that I was really happy that this person who
what did they
ghosted me, it's like, obviously, there was much more going on there than I understood. So,
and
anyway.
well, and that's the biggest thing is it's not about you. Like one of the most difficult things to learn, but it's so freeing, is nothing is about you. It's not about me. Nothing is about me. We
Yeah,
tell ourselves all these stories about why we didn't get the sale. And we make us the villain, we make them the villain, we did a bad job, we did a good job. And sometimes their company got flooded and they haven't been thinking about us, right?
yeah,
It can be
yeah,
so random. It can be
yeah,
so, it's not about you. If you stay neutral and you just keep telling yourself nothing is about me, then you can come back with that neutrality later
yeah,
instead of pushing someone. If someone's ghosted you and given you that soft no, and then you push, it becomes a hard no. Yet, if it was never about us to begin with, and we don't know what's going on in their companies or their lives, that leaves that door open. But the coaching version of the client you don't want is if you ever find yourself with a prospect who's talking bad, like this didn't work and this didn't work and this didn't work, and you find yourself saying, well, that's because you haven't hired me yet, don't do that.
yeah.
If they've given you a litany of examples of things you wouldn't necessarily disagree with,
Right.
and they're telling you none of it worked, don't get that ego of, well, I'm better. I'll be the one to show you, because
Yeah.
it won't happen. It won't,
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
be a
I had one of those clients and I fired the client and it was like the best day of my life. Um, but what happens too is like on the opposite side of ghosting is it is a silent no. But in the same time, I loved your idea of just like every 6 months, just send a quick email, very neutral email, because I did that one time and it was like, yeah, I got your email. I haven't done anything with it because 3 of my techs quit and I had to like go find 3 techs like right away. So it's one of those things where you don't know what's going on.
and go a
And
step
every 6 months and you want to take 3 minutes to send them an email. So what?
go
And
a
I've actually,
further
yeah, yeah,
and find an article, something you didn't write, so that it can't be interpreted as salesy. Find an article that is a solution to the problem you know they have, and send it to them.
yes. I
And just
love
say,
that.
right now, it's not salesy. It's just an invitation to continue conversation. Hey, I don't know if you're still facing XYZ situation, but I saw this and it made me think of you,
Yes.
period. Don't
Yeah,
even invite them to
absolutely.
talk to you. Like, just stop pushing, stop
Yeah.
chasing.
To that same person, I sent like 2 months later, I said, I hope you found the people that you were looking for. I just wanted you to know that, I was thinking about you and hope everything's going well. I didn't even ask them to like
Right,
contact me. I was just thinking, and like, it's a
right.
sentence. You don't even, because they don't have time to read a litany of paragraphs that you write about like why they should work with you. Okay. I love this. So I'm hoping that the listeners are understood. Not I'm hoping you, as listeners, understand that if we stop calling it selling and we start calling it problem solving, it takes it takes the pressure off, and the ghosting or the no's. Sometimes the no's mean not now, and that there's never a time where a prospect is just completely dead to you unless there's a specific from them. No, this is not going to happen.
Right.
Always continue to follow up every once in a while and just see what happens. You just never know. I actually got it in COVID when I lost a bunch of clients because, well, COVID. And I just simply sent emails out to past clients and just said, hey, I hope everything's going well. 2 of them hired me because they had to fire their marketing person. And so they were like, because we can't afford a full time marketing person, there's nothing to do. So they hired me on a part time basis, which was great because it made up some of the revenue that I lost COVID. Anyway, so the last part I want to talk about this is when a project is done. Okay,
Mhm.
we finish a project, it's delivered in full. What is your advice to people about like that next step? Because I do believe that that is a huge missed opportunity with people once the
Words over.
project is done or the product is delivered. Then what does that look like?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they wait until that point to ask for a referral. So here's the problem. If you wait, people think, well, I can't ask for a referral because I'm not done. So they don't realize how good I am. They've already decided if you're good or not through your process of working together. If you wait until everything's over to
Yeah.
ask for a referral, then they might say, yes, I have someone for you. And then they don't make the introduction right away. So now you're like, well, so we're back to chasing people again. So one of the biggest mistakes is do not wait until the end to ask for a referral. Do it in the middle, do it after a big win in the process. Do you have anyone else that you know of that might also benefit from this type of thing? Now that you know more about me and what I can do or how I work or what we can solve for people, do you know anyone else who might? That way, you're already scheduled to talk to them more because you're not done working with them. So you can just sprinkle in that reminder about the referral and not make anyone weird. And then you're not
Yes.
chasing people. So that's my one, like my first big one. And then the other thing is, every time a problem is solved, it creates a new problem. Because now we've
Yes.
right? It's true. Every time a
Yeah.
problem is solved, it creates a new problem. So our company grown. We've helped solve your sales and marketing. You're making more. You've got more business coming in without spending more money. So now your business is coming in because you fixed your marketing. Now you need more team members.
Yeah.
So have trusted referral sources that can solve their next problem. Know who comes before you and after you in the growth process of whatever problem you solve. Because
Yeah.
right? So now you can make your decision if you also want to go into that business. I'm not a big fan of that. I stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Some people like buying more companies to go with their company that solves the next problem, the conglomerates and everything. That's an option. Or know who comes after you in the process so that you can refer them the business and have that at the ready. So what does that do? One, it makes you the hero to your client you've already vetted and solved their next problem. It makes you a hero to the person you referred business to. They're now making money. They can either A, give you a referral fee, okay, fine, or B, refer business back. And you
Right.
create these power partnerships. In one of my businesses that I had, there was like 5 of us. We knew for every client, these were the 5 services that were always going to be needed. So it didn't
Yeah.
matter who got in the door first. Whoever was in the door introduced to the client first played quarterback and managed the relationship. And we just had all the pieces plugged in and we became such a full solution. Like, here's an example. That was in the business I owned from 2012 to 2018. It is 2026. Something just came up and I've been reunited with one of the people who owned one of those referral sources. He's in a different business. I'm in a different business. And we are doing a huge project together with no sales process, with no hesitation because of that relationship that we built through referring each other business 10 years ago.
Yeah. And people don't forget. I mean, I have a similar one. It's a little bit different, but I have a marketing agency who I've done business with and referrals back and forth. And they had something outside of their specialty, still in marketing, but they passed on it. So they were like, "Do you know somebody else who can fill this?" And I did, and I'm a huge hero. What not only person that I referred to because they got new business, but this referral partner, this strategic partner that I have, he's like, "You solved a huge problem for one of my clients." And I got nothing out of it, but I will eventually. I'm not a huge person that believes in like, oh, well, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I believe in business karma. Eventually this will happen. I was just happy that both people got what they needed and I was able to help them. I don't expect anything in return.
What I say is give to the big business bucket in the sky and the big business bucket in the sky gets back to you. It's not linear. It's
It's
not
not.
linear because
It's
not
not.
everybody is in a business to be one-to-one reciprocal. It doesn't work that way. Some
Right.
people are in businesses that create referral opportunities more than others. So it's just the big business bucket in the sky. And if we all put into it, it all comes back to us. And
Yeah.
to that, I will tell you some of my best referrals. So referrals are some of the best business to get because they close faster, they close at a higher rate, and they close at a higher dollar amount. So some of my best referrals have come to me from people who never said yes to me. They said no to me. Some of my best referrals have come from people who said no to me because I wasn't the right fit for them for whatever reason. But the whole sales process was handled in a way that I just wasn't the right fit for them, but it made them know, it allowed them to know who I was the right fit for.
Yeah, and in the same vein, it's like people may have worked with you so many years ago, and then they're not at that company anymore, but they're at this company, so then they wanna bring you into that company. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Okay, we need to start wrapping some things up, but what I would love to do is, first of all, I wanted to add to what you said before. When I ask for referrals for an existing customer, I always say, "I wrapped up a project just like this, and now I've got capacity. Do you know anybody else who needs this?" And so it's
Yep,
more of that. Yeah, it's that same, just letting them know that you're open so they get time to think about who they might want to refer back to.
absolutely.
But referral is the best way to grow your business. But at some point in time, those stop. So you need to actually market too. But that's another podcast. Okay. So, what piece of information would you give that maybe about selling or the client experience that you used to believe that you don't believe anymore after doing this for so long? Is there anything that
They
you were
used
taught
to
that
be
you now you're like, yeah, that doesn't work for me?
kind of the same for you. I am of an age, right? I came up through in financial services and even before that, commercial real estate, which was cold calling, right? It was a numbers game that if you cold dialed, dialing for dollars.
Yep. Been
And
there.
that's what I was taught is how you do sales. And that is not how I do sales. I I have a marketing approach to sales. I have an education. I'll take it a step further. I have an education-based marketing approach to sales. I approach creating relationships. I call it leveraged sales. The thing that works best for me is I don't chase individual prospects. I very seldom go after individual in any of the businesses that I've had. I have very seldom gone after, and this is not what I'm doing at the nonprofit. I have very seldom gone after individual sales. What I have done is created a marketing process that educates people on don't be scared to give your best stuff away if you're in a consulting situation, where
Yep.
I have educated people in a way that allows them to self-select to the next process next step. And if they don't, they become raving fans who do. So while that's happening, the other piece of my marketing plan is to create reciprocal relationships with centers of influence who can and make it easy for them to refer me business. Those are the two channels that I have always used. And I will tell
Yes.
you, it's what allowed me to I got my franchise that I own to the top 10 out of 200 offices in 18 months. I owned a coaching and consulting business that was in the multiple six figures 2 years in. And those were my two approaches to marketing, an education-based marketing process that gave everything away and allowed people to self-select until they came to me. And on the other side, on networking, build reciprocal relationships with centers of influence that made referrals easy. And both of those things couldn't be furthest from what I was
Oh
originally
yeah.
taught
Dialing
sales,
for dollars. Yeah. I was actually like in heels and in nylons and
right? Because we had to wear
a
nylon.
suit
Yep.
knocking on doors. Oh yeah, it was a
Knocking on
requirement, by
doors.
the way.
This is so pre 9/11. You couldn't do this now. Being in Chicago in commercial real estate, we used to walk the floors of the high rises in downtown Chicago, going into all of the offices and asking them who represents you for your real estate.
Oh,
Just for
100%. I was walking through industrial parks, knocking on manufacturing doors.
uh,
And by the way, always carrying chocolate for the receptionist is a huge thing. But moving on. We're not doing that anymore. It's fine. It was
I
just one of my tricks.
nothing could be further from the truth. It's not being attached to the outcome, it's being interested in the humans that you're talking to.
Oh, mic drop moment. Perfect way to end. Erin, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We always have the best conversations. I love it. I appreciate you so much. Not only that, for just encouraging me and kicking my ass at the same time. It's been really fun working with you on that. So, okay,
You're
that
amazing.
wraps up. That wraps up this episode of the Pitch to Purchase podcast. So if you're afraid of sales, stop it. It's your job. I don't care what you do in your industry. You are part of the sales team. So until next time, it's time to raise the bar, people, and maybe a little help.